What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Purpose Served podcast episode. I'm your host, Daryl Wingfield. Um, it's getting freaking fairly warm out here. I'm in New Jersey. We recently had a stretch where it's been a solid, like, I don't know, 20 degrees outside, 30. Don't like that kind of weather. It sucks. But now, today is currently like 60 degrees, which is like is weird. We're in February, but you know, it is what it is. But today's podcast episode is going to be centered around resilience, and I've noticed as of late with me these last I want to say a couple of weeks. As I told you guys, I'm getting a lot of things together with Purpose Served as a business and the business aspect of Purpose Served, and that's been very, very, very difficult to maneuver through. But doing these things and also handling, you know, my family, my friends, my relationships with, other people, and also working a full time job, it's been it's been a lot. It's been pretty challenging. And the one thing that I have realized as of recently within the last 2 days is the importance of having a routine, having a regimen, and that saves you a whole lot of trouble going into the future. And then we meet with resilience and we have these routines, they can help us get out of them patches of life where it feels like we are not making any progress. Everything is going against us in some sort of way, shape, or form, and there's nothing we can really do to get out of it. I was listening to two things in particular that helped me get to this point. I was listening to the Knuckleheads podcast with Quentin Richardson and Darius Miles, two ex NBA players, and they had Steph Curry on there. And they're pretty much asking Steph Curry all of these questions about his career, how he came about doing what he literally is doing right now. Which at this point, every single three that he makes, he's breaking his own record. He's breaking a record every single time he hit a three. And the amount of humility that the dude showed and gratitude towards others and also challenging situations that force him to grow was very inspiring to listen to. And it's one of those things where he feels like he's incredibly lucky to be in that situation, and for him to understand that he made 3,000 threes in his career, more than anybody that ever played in the NBA. He did it, and it's still something that is hard for him to wrap his mind around it. It's difficult for him to get his emotions around that thing. But for those that don't really know about Steph Curry backstory, is when he was in high school, he wasn't looked at by major schools or anything, and he ended up settling for a school um, at Davidson in North Carolina. Really small Division I school, but the coach seen something in him that he decided that he was going to take a chance with. And Steph Curry, first game at Davidson, he had 13 turnovers, but yet and still the coach trusted him and trusted him in a way where he wasn't going to give him a pat on the back every time, but pushing him to be the best version of himself. And with that comes a lot of resilience and resistance as well. And resistance is key to growth. We live in a globe a universe where us as human beings, it's this shit is constantly conspiring against us. It's not in a way where it's guiding us through, but through the tools and resources that we've come to develop and our ancestors and the ones that came before us, we know how to deal with resistance. And dealing with resistance means being resilient, in the face of whatever opposing forces that's trying to stop you from being who you were destined to be and doing what you was destined to do. You can't you can't you can't be great without it. And it's very important. And I don't care who you name, who you watch, anybody that you admire or that you envy in some sort of way, they face their like resistance, they face their resilience in some sort of way, shape or form. It's a rite of passage, Existing is something that you can just exist. It can be given to you, but at the same time, there's a part of this that you're going to have to learn at some given point to fight back. You're going to have to learn at some given point to fight back for the things that you want. And you're going to need to do this on a consistent basis. You can't just think that you can one shot this thing and just keep going. Think about this kind of concept. If you have a band or a rapper or artist, anybody that's making a song, there's a process. Pay attention to the word process right now to get that song done, to have it made, to have it put out, and to be able to perform it on stage in front of fans, in front of a crowd of people. You rarely, 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 if ever, see uh, a rapper, artist, singer, or band put together music on the spot in front of people right then and there. It's most likely going to be a shit show. Yet again, I'm going to keep apologizing for my language. My mom watched this. It's funny, guys. My mom listened to, I think, Immortality, the podcast, 2 podcasts ago. She heard the first little bit of it, and she had to go to a different one because she was like, no, that is not it. So when y'all hear me curse and then apologize, that's literally from my mom. I do feel bad for doing that. I'm not even going to lie, but sometimes I can't help myself. It puts an emphasis on, I guess, a point that I'm trying to make. I guess not in this kind of context, but Mom, I'm sorry. Yet again, I gotta stop laughing when I apologize. It don't seem genuine. Uh, but yeah, back to it. But all of these things, this it helps propel you forward and challenge and sharpen your tools that you need for the journey that you embark on. All stories have this. You don't. A story is not compelling or not even interesting if it don't have elements of resistance in it and resilience. Oftentimes the main character is a different person by the end of the story, rather than the beginning of the story. Um, I'm about to go through the book The Alchemist, like a little overview of The Alchemist. This is a book that I'm pretty sure I talked about here a couple times. I think one in particular when my main man Mike was on here, Michael, and I brought up the personal legend. And shout out to Michael as well, man. Blaze training, hashtag never settle, man. The dude, I'm getting sidetracked a little bit, but just mentioning him is getting me hype a little bit. But he's one of those dudes, man. When I very first met him, through Reagan, who was also on this podcast as well, and she's doing the 20 something collective to help entrepreneurs around my age with the kind of mindset to push forward and create and help others while you're doing it. But I seen Michael's speaking segment, his little speaking engagement, and it was very, very inspiring, and I related to it so much, and also, um, I can see how hard he worked through how he presented himself. You could tell with certain people, you could just simply tell, but he was one of those people. But then, once I got to talk to him and stuff like that, and really got to know him, it was just like, yo, we are very, very similar, and I see him on a daily, like on the gram, working out, putting himself out there and all of that. Like he's a type of person that's directly being confronted with resistance all the time. Even the very act of lifting weights and working out, you're directly confronting resistance firsthand. And you answer that and you combat that with resilience. You don't shy away from it. You just simply show up and you do the work. And that's not an easy thing to do. But to see people do that and they also got a regimen and routine towards it, and they're inspiring other people. They're in their community. They're active. They're just trying to help the world be a better place through whatever it is that they're doing and what they can provide, as a service or a product. You know what I mean? And I'm deeply moved and inspired by people like that and acts like those, because the easiest thing to do, and sometimes it feels like the best thing to do, is when you go after something and you necessarily don't get the results that you was looking for. You got cut from the team. You didn't get the grade. You end up failing the test. You end up failing the quiz. You end up losing your job. You ended up being demoted. You didn't get the promotion that you was looking for. You can't pay this month's rent. You can't pay your car note, for this month. You fell short. And this is stuff that people deal with constantly all the time. But at the same time, if you look at it from the realm of resistance, like this is an opposing force that's restricting you from living a life that you truly want to live. How do you get over that resistance? That's something that I constantly ask myself, in different situations that I put myself in. And the realization that I've come to is through listening to dudes like Steph and like another guy, Ray Allen is another guest on that Knuckleheads podcast, that I seen that they had a routine that was their go to handle a lot of different situations, and they got really, really good because they did not break these routines. For the most part, they stayed with them. And going back to the book The Alchemist, which led me into talking about Michael being on the podcast, is just that book had resistance written literally all throughout the book. You know, to those that's gonna eventually read it, this is about to be spoiler alert time for those of you that's not gonna read it. I guess who the hell cares, right? Um, the book starts off with this farmer kid, Santiago. Santiago is a shepherd's boy. His dad is a priest, and he wants Santiago to enter priesthood. But Santiago do not want to do that, and the only reason why he got these sheep to begin with is to be able to travel and see the world. And he got these inclinations from traveling and seeing the world from the books that he used to read before he even got the sheep, you know. So these is tools and resources that started to help him expand his mind beyond what was around him and beyond his norm and his environment and his society. Because The cards that was dealt to him through life was being a priest. That was literally from, his predecessor that was going to get passed down from his father to him, which is something that if he would have probably entered, he would have probably, you know, made his son into priesthood as well. Excuse me. But um, he took these sheep and he went around his little country of Spain, I believe it was, and he traveled until he came across a merchant who had a beautiful daughter. And his goal was to use the sheep to give one of these merchants to be able to marry his daughter. So he went out to the market trying to gather enough nuts to ask the merchant for his daughter in marriage. And while doing this, he came across the king. He was sitting on a bench. He's reading his book that he just purchased that he could barely understand. And the king came to him and talked to him about his personal legend. And the personal legend, as a matter of fact, give me 1 second. I'm going to read what the king said. Please forgive me. Be patient with me here, people. I wonder if I've already read the personal legend on here. I wouldn't be surprised if I did. Uh, the Alchemist. I can't find it. Found it. Let's go. Let's go. I found it. Let's go. It's like, nah. But it says the boy didn't know what a person's personal legend was. Uh, and after that, it says it's what you have always wanted to accomplish. Everyone, when they are young, knows what their personal legend is. At that point in their lives, everything is clear and everything is possible. They are not afraid to dream and to yearn for everything they would like to see happen to them in their lives. But as time passes, a mysterious force begins to convince them that it will be impossible for them to realize their personal legend. And on 24 of the page, on the 24th page of The Alchemist, it says to realize one's personal legend is a person's only real obligation. Take a second to play that back. Take a second to listen to that. But a person's personal legend is their real obligation. That's their only obligation, you know? And oftentimes we get met with negative forces that seem to conspire against going against our personal legend, you know? It happens all the time. Tragedies, death in the family, flat tires, not enough money, lack of resources, lack the people, lack the knowledge. These are all of these things that seem like it's conspiring against us. But all in all, you got to look at these things as a way where, okay, there's an opportunity in this to grow in some way, shape, or form. And even when you go towards that, that's still, those lessons are still going to be apparent. This is something throughout the whole entire story that Santiago didn't really understand, but he was starting to notice the patterns. He was starting to notice the omens. He was starting to notice, the good slash bad vibes, he ended up selling all of his sheep to listen to this king, and this king pretty much told him like, you're in search for something. You're in search for your treasure, And at this time, he's really thinking, like, you know what? I don't really know what he's saying. I got these sheep. I'm trying to marry this girl. What is this dude talking about? And is this dude really a king? And he asked the dude this, are you really a king? And he opened up, I guess, his garment, and seeing that under his garment was like a gold plated thing, This is really a rough summary of the story. I haven't read the story in a while, but he ended up selling the sheep. He ended up getting a ticket and trying to go to Egypt, to the pyramids, to go find his treasure. Mind you, he never heard of Egypt. He never heard of Africa. He never even been there. So he was, of course, very, very skeptical about this. And he went to go see a fortune teller and a gypsy about what it is that he was supposed to do. And this gypsy, when she told him uh what she said, he didn't know how to take it, and he didn't know that if she was saying that, is this something based off of what she felt as though I wanted to hear, or was he trying to scam me, or it was just a lot going through, and he ended up going past the border of Spain. He's in, I guess, the Middle East, not yet Africa yet, and he's in the middle of trading routes and all of this. He ended up getting robbed by this merchant who took literally every single thing that he had except for these two rocks, which stones, which pretty much told him, what was going to be a good omen or a bad omen. That was the only thing that was left of him. He didn't really have anything else left. So he felt as though the king steered him in the wrong direction. The fortune teller steered him in the wrong direction. And the dude that took the money was going to guide him to the boat to get to Egypt. But he ended up taking his money and doing the dash on him. He did the dash on the fool. So Santiago was literally left with nothing in a place where he don't know nobody. He's never been before. You talk about scary. That's scary as hell. But eventually, he ends up going. Where did he go? Oh, he ended up running into like a literal alchemist. As a matter of fact, he ended up purchasing, working for a merchant. Let me backtrack. He ended up working for a merchant, which didn't receive a lot of business. He was selling tea, and he was selling souvenirs and teacups and glasses and stuff like that. And Santiago ended up working there, and his goal was to work there long enough to purchase sheep to go back home, because he's kind of over everything at this point. He's like, yo, you know what? This is like dead. So in a matter of, I believe, like it was like a year he was there, he ended up having 2 times or 3 times as more, significantly more than what he had when he first entered that town to begin with. And the merchant that ended up hiring him, pretty much, he was a Muslim, so he was Islamic, and people would cross that trade route to go to Mecca. And one of his personal legends was to one day get a chance to go to Mecca, but he never found enough courage to, make that sacred pilgrimage to Mecca. And he's seen so many people traveling from so many different places to make that pilgrimage. And he encouraged Santiago to continue on with his personal legend to go to Egypt and find what he was looking for, And he eventually purchased a ticket to cross the desert to get to the pyramids. And along this way, he met an alchemist who, sole purpose was trying to turn, you know, things into gold. That was just like, and he was going to the pyramids to find another alchemist who was known for that. And all in all, just to sum up the story, to make the long story short, Santiago ended up digging for this treasure, right? In Egypt, where he seen it, he started having visions of it, and he got guided there throughout all of these different sources, but was being met with resistance every step of the way. Traveling the desert, the tribes was at war in the desert, so they're going through, territories that was at war. So, they can be bystanders to two sides opposing each other. And while he's digging, in this, I guess, the sand dune for this treasure, bandits come up and they pretty much beat the shit out of him and left him there for dead. And that's when he had a vision where the treasure was where he started all along, and he had to go back to Spain, pretty much where the story all started off with, to go find the treasure. But not only that, the treasure was literally with him all along. He goes to the treasure and he leaves a note there instead of taking the treasure to encourage somebody else, to inspire somebody else to find the treasure in the way that he found it as well. And it feels as though with the resistance that we constantly deal with, even on a humanitarian um, scale, I look at dudes like Plato, Aristotle, Nikola Tesla, so many of these figures who, all in all, pass down valuable information, and they themselves was met with a worldly amount of resistance to who they are and what they was trying to do. For example, um, Plato, who he learned from, and his teacher was Socrates, and Socrates was killed. He was poisoned to death, you know, intentionally, and he knew it. And he he spoke against what a lot of I believe it was what Greece was preaching at the time. He kind of went against the grain, and it started off as like, haha, yeah, you're a wacky old funny guy, like we ain't taking you serious, to the point where they started looking at Socrates as a threat and how he could possibly, influence the next generation to come to think in a way that can possibly endanger Greece as a whole in a society. And Plato seen that, and he passed down information in spite of, like, I mean, in the face of people dealing with, being a martyr, being somebody that's speaking out against, things that's restricting them and keeping them, living below the water. Guys that's similar to Socrates to me is, Gandhi, Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman. I got to show love to my peoples, but those are the type of people that face these resilience to anybody that's even listening. I'm not going to go on a limb. Well, I am going to go on a limb. You're not facing resilient resistance on that type of magnitude. That's extreme. That's everyday life or death. And these people are willing to choose death over everything else. And that's a difficult place to be in. It's really, really difficult. But like I say, it's so many things on an everyday given basis that's conspiring against us. But it also shows that you have to If you really want to make a way in this world and really want to make a change and see a difference, you got to enact these things on a everyday basis to the point where you're building up some sort of routine. You're building up a habit. You got to have a process. If you don't have these processes, it's impossible for these things to come about. Like for real. Like to really think about it. Like bringing back the example I brought up with music. Music has a process. They don't just go on stage and have an idea in their head and then after that they try to perform it. That would be a freaking disaster. That shit would be bad. Lose out so much money, fan base, resources from going out there. And that's essentially winging it, you know? And oftentimes in these moments, the people that you see, I guess, on TV, your teachers, your leaders, they had a process that they had to work through. And it took a great deal of discipline to enact that, you know? It wasn't easy. And any sort of resistance that you're facing right now, develop a process to get over that hump and not look at it as in a way where this thing is not for you, but look at it in a way where, typical message from this podcast and from Purpose Served is that it's a form of learning, and with learning comes growth automatically. But if you choose to, get that bad grade or lose that job or, get rejected by a guy or a girl that you're asking out or whatever, don't fucking sulk in that. Like, don't do that. Accept that it happened. Embrace it. Immerse yourself in that feeling that's obviously not going to feel good. Move on. Jesus Christ, just move on. It may not, be that simply put and easy, but you move on by starting a whole different process, by integrating, something new that you're going to incorporate every single day. And this leads to the very last thing. In the next couple of weeks, there will be free planners on my website, on the Purpose Served website, and also planners that's going to be very, very cheap to help you with your work life, your school life, and if you play sports or have any hobbies, to put these things in that kind of realm where you're operating from a place where you got a go-to time that you're going to be doing this thing. You got your week is set out already. Your day is set out. Your month is set out. You know when you're working. You know when you got class. All of these things is already set out for you. And not only that, that you have goals in place that is going to take you to a whole nother level rather than just setting out time for an activity that you're trying to do. But the goal is literally to get better and better every single day. No matter how major or small that improvement is, the goal is to constantly have improvement. As long as we being faced with resistance, resilience guarantees improvement. And through these planners and these also journal logs that I'm about to start selling as well, it's going to very well help you all put that into context and execute whatever dreams and aspirations that you have and goals that you have, So this is the end of the podcast. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm still trying to get to 100 subscribers, ain't a lot, but if we can collectively get 37 people to subscribe, that would mean like the world to me, and to everybody that's listening. This is the last announcement. I am putting out a podcast every day this week. So tomorrow, expect the podcast. Wednesday, expect the podcast. Thursday, expect the podcast. Friday, expect the podcast. This is about to be 5 days straight. You know, I owe it to y'all. I really, really do. This month, it was really, really bad with my upload, but I definitely owe it to y'all. And reach out to me if you find this helpful. You know, I need feedback because I don't necessarily know, if this is really helping you guys or not. I only know certain moments, but to hear your feedback, to leave a comment, review, DM me on Instagram, message me on Twitter. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if things I need to improve on myself. You know, and other than that, that'd be all. Deuces. Yo, I'm out.